Hello, everyone. I am Gui Valente, and this is the Valente Brothers podcast. We're here with Pedro Valente.
Very happy to be here once again. Welcome.
And with Joaquim Valente.
Hello, everyone. Happy to be here.
So we're back for another episode. This episode is actually part 2 of our special episode dedicated to our father, Grandmaster Dr. Pedro Valente Sr. If you haven't watched that episode, please do, as we will now just finalize. We were not able to complete our the stories and everything we wanted to say in one episode. So we left off talking about how one of the greatest attributes of our father was the fact that he was humble, and he talked about how he did not want his mistakes to be carried over to us. Understanding that we're not perfect, we make mistakes, but having that humility, I think it's a lot about humility, to understand that and not want it to be transferred to your children, to those around you. How can we really define that?
I think it all begins with self-awareness. Most people have a very difficult time accepting their own flaws, their own mistakes. And that's why many times you have these family cycles or intergenerational patterns, both positive and negative attributes that are perpetuated in families from grandfather to father to son. And obviously it is important that positive elements are maintained. But you want to break the cycle when it comes to negative patterns so that your children don't carry on elements of your personality, of your character, or habits that you might have that are negative and that can bring suffering and pain, and which is not desired.
But you want to teach and transmit the positive ones.
Correct.
But it's not through osmosis.
No.
Right? It's through a lot of hard work. As you were saying that, Pedro and Joaquim, I thought about even our teachers, right? The Gracies. We know that Carlos and Hélio, they were really the first ones in their family to learn jiu-jitsu and to learn about a positive, healthy lifestyle and how that could have a great impact, not only in their lives, but in the lives of their children, grandchildren, right? In the generations of their family. And there's often a misconception. We see that because we know the family, many family members so well. We grew up with many of them. We know that some, and of course it's a free world, some did not share those ideas, right? Some did not share those interests that Carlos and Hélio had, and they decided to do things differently. But from the outside, we see that the public, especially because it became a very famous family, if you are a Gracie, you should eat a certain way. If you are a Gracie, you should fight a certain way. You should practice jiu-jitsu. That can be very difficult, right, Joaquim? And of course, we know that even some famous members of the family, they did not eat according to what became known as the Gracie diet. Back in the day, it was called regime de alimentação racional, right? Rational eating regimen.
That would nutrition regimen.
Nutrition regimen. I think Horion started using this name when he wrote the book, even before.
Gracie diet.
Gracie diet.
Gracie diet. But yes, we know many family members that did not choose to live through that diet,
and I think
that regimen.
I think the example that you're giving touches on a lot of the attributes that are necessary for those cycles to be broken, right? And for the positive teachings to be passed on to the younger generations. So I think it's a combination. Pedro spoke about the necessity of self-awareness, and I believe self-awareness is key, and awareness overall. I believe that being humble, as you mentioned, but I also think that there has to be a very high level of honesty, because without honesty, we many times fall into patterns of finding excuses to our flaws, to our mistakes,
to justify.
Because that's the easiest thing to do. And many times using past generations for those excuses, right? Oh, because my father was like this, or my grandmother was like this, or this was passed on to, our family. And I think it's totally fine for you to do some research and find out why, certain patterns were passed on through generations. But I think the energy really has to go on your ability to be able to break those patterns, in the ability for you to be able to see how you're going to reinvent those patterns so that you can break them and so that you can find the most positive, attitudes to be able to move forward in the mission of breaking those patterns. I think a great example of that in our family was what we spoke about yesterday of our father, who was someone more short-tempered, right? I think that was connected with his intensity and his passion.
His emotions.
His emotions and his passion for everything he did. But he was the first one to say that sometimes that worked against him. And he wanted us to be able to develop the ability to be more composed, more with our emotions more under control. And I think even his connection with Grandmaster Helio and having us, have Grandmaster Helio so present in our lives, from a young age, even though Grandmaster Helio was also someone who was short-tempered, but I think was connected to that. And I remember a conversation with our dad, already towards the end of his life. And he telling me, he's like, all of you need to be a better version of who I was. It's my mission, and has always been my mission, for you guys to be a better version. So don't allow the mistakes that you might have seen me make as a reason for you to copy me or want to do the same. You need to correct those and fix those mistakes so that you can be a better version. So this is something that really, stuck with me, and every day I think of, becoming a better person, I remember those words from him, because it applies to everything, right? It's not only with our dad, but, we are nature and nurture, and everything that is connected to nurture from past generations, we have to find a way to be able to do better, to be able to channel the positive message to our future generations in a way that they will be able to assimilate and to be able to take that to a higher level of values and integrity and everything that is composed in the 753 code.
Yeah. When we think of our father, we think of loyalty, we think of trust. We wanted always to make him happy, right? We think of reliability. What other words? Presence, even without being there sometimes.
Care and attention. And a very deep desire for us to be well and to do well.
Yeah. So for that reason, we never wanted to disappoint him. And until today, our father passed away in 2016. And everything we do, right, our sister's the same, we're always thinking of how he would react to whatever we do. And we do it in a very positive way. I think that's very positive for us. But that's not always what happens. Sometimes children choose to go the opposite way for various reasons, when that connection is broken for some reason.
So it's Very interesting that you say that, because
So-
most, and I want to say,
Okay.
speak exactly about what you're mentioning.
Because I just wanted to connect with what Joaquim was saying and what I raised. So we were talking about how you have to sometimes break cycles, but you also have, and this comes more from, in this case, the father, the one who's older, passing on. You have to know what is good and what is bad. Because if you have children that are connected to you, who want to follow your footsteps,
Be like you.
they will always try to be like you. And I think that's why our dad had this conversation with you, and he had it with us. He had it with me as well, because it's almost like you want to copy even his mistakes. You want to be so loyal.
So that's why many specialists in parenting, they'll say, if you don't want your child to have your flaw, you must fix it yourself. There's no way you're going to be able to tell your child to be different, because if you're giving that example, they're going to copy you. They're going to want to be like you.
Well,
Consciously-
the specialist did not know our father.
Correct. And that's the point. But then I was asking myself as you were speaking, or as Joaquim was speaking earlier.
Even though that would be great.
I was correct. If you can fix yourself, that's
Yeah.
the best. But I was asking myself, as I have so many times, what allowed our father to be able to do this? And I think it's exactly what you're saying. It's trust. He was able to make us listen to him. So even if he was doing something that he didn't want us to do, as long as he told us don't do it, we would listen to him because we trusted him.
But let's use, and we spoke about it yesterday. For example, our dad used to drink sometimes,
Correct.
alcohol, right? And he was the number one person that influenced us not to do these things.
Correct.
Even though I don't remember our father ever telling me, don't drink alcohol. I don't have this.
I do.
I remember. But I think
He would
that-
say that it was bad and that he only
but I
started
don't
later.
think that was the number one way. I don't think that was the way that really influenced us, and that's where I'm going to get to. But do you remember? I don't, and it's different. Maybe it was different in your time. But what would he say when he would drink to cause us not to drink?
So I remember clearly him sitting with me at night. He was drinking a port,
It's called vinho do Porto. I don't know if in
Yes.
English it's port
Port,
wine.
yes.
Port wine.
yeah. And he was telling me, I only started drinking when I was 25 years old. Until 25 years old, I never drank. And it's very bad for you to drink while your brain is still being formed. So for sure, you should never touch alcohol until you're 25. Once you're 25, then you can make your own decision. This is when I was 7 years old, 8 years old, right? Then later, he started telling me, I wish I had never tried. I did because of my profession, but I wish I had never tried. You should never try it because it brings nothing good to you.
Yeah, he would even tell us it's easier for you after we decided to be jiu-jitsu teachers.
Correct.
And he would say that many times because of his profession and because of dinners,
Social
and
events.
social events, it would be very hard to refuse someone's bottle of wine. And so
Anything else? No, that he would say. Maybe he never told. Maybe it was different with me.
I think that, like we said last episode, you have to know your child, and there's not one formula.
For each
Exactly.
one.
I think I was always very curious, and I was a little bit, I don't know if the word is rebellious, but I was maybe a little bit like him, right? So maybe he was not very
Direct.
Direct.
With me, he used to talk about weakness, and that's why what I said about honesty and about being humble and vulnerable in this way. He used to say, "This is a weakness," and he used to say, Dad has this weakness, but you're strong, and you're not going to be like that, and you're never going to do this.
Yeah, interesting. Hélio Gracie was the one that talked more about weakness. No?
To us, yeah.
Yeah, he would say, cara fraco.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting because, again, when we talk about courage in our 753 code, the philosophy, the way we see the philosophy of jiu-jitsu, according, of course, to the traditions of jiu-jitsu. We did not make up. I think that sometimes we hear that jiu-jitsu's philosophy is whatever you want it to be. So then it's not jiu-jitsu, right?
Correct.
But anyways, when we talk about courage, we talk about this concept of moral courage, right? Oftentimes one thinks that courage is only connected to physical courage.
Physical acts.
Yes, if you walk into a room with someone shooting at you, that's very courageous. That's a courageous act.
To save someone, to do something.
Save someone, right? A firefighter, I think, has to be courageous to be good at his profession. But to say no to drugs,
To peer pressure.
to peer pressure, to say no to alcohol, to say no to so many negative
So Hélio Gracie
vices,
would
you
tell
have to be courageous.
Yeah, he would talk about smoking, about drugs and alcohol in the following terms. I remember this clearly. He said, if you use those things, you're either weak or ignorant. Fraco ou ignorante. There's no third choice. If you think it's not bad for you, you're ignorant. If you know it's bad for you and you still do it, you're weak.
Yeah. Our father used to talk about controlled imagination, right? Because we have so many great friends of ours, family members who like to have a drink, and that's completely fine, right? Even among our black belts.
Every journey is individual, right?
Is individual. What we often recommend students and friends to do is think of all the benefits that come from not drinking, right? If anyone tells me that drinking, that having alcohol in your system will make you smarter, will make you stronger, will make you healthier in the long run,
Yeah.
I would be the first one to start drinking.
There's a study that just came out that says that, once again, that moderate consumption of alcohol is associated to better outcomes when it comes to the health of the heart, cardiovascular health. So I was like, here we go again. So I went and I started looking at the study.
You're saying that here we go again because recently all of these studies have been debunked.
Correct.
The ones that say that it's good for you.
Yes. But remember, good for you is a general thing. Good, because many of these things might be good for something.
Yeah, what if it makes you sleep better? Somebody who's very stressed.
That's the point. That's exactly what the study said, that what they believe is the reason for better outcomes in cardiovascular health is because it reduces stress. But they also say in the study, but we must also remember that it can cause cancer, that it increases the risk of cancer.
Yeah.
So my point is this: aren't there better ways to reduce stress?
Correct.
Without increasing the risk of cancer and among other problems for your liver and so many other problems that alcohol
Absolutely.
brings?
And I think, an interesting point about this is that a lot of times people that want to drink and people that even want to use drugs and all this, they talk about their freedom and how they want to be free to be able to do these things. And the other day I was thinking about this and, doing a brainstorming of all the lessons we had from our dad with Grandmaster Hélio. And this idea came into my mind of, isn't there a highest level of freedom when there's no necessity to have anything exterior that you need to use to be able to live your life at its to fulfill all the necessities to live your life. So to be able to go to sleep, to be able to wake up, to be able to work, to be able to go to the bathroom, right? Everything that you have to do in your day without the necessity of any use of any substance.
Yeah.
For me, that's the highest level of freedom. So the discipline that requires for you to be able to break cycles, to be able to break bad habits, because it requires discipline, especially in the beginning, which a lot of times people think that discipline is reducing your freedom. It's what's really going to bring you the most freedom in your life. So
There's a quote, and I don't remember it precisely, by Immanuel Kant, a great philosopher. And I talked about this in the philosophy talk a few weeks ago. And it says something along the lines of, real freedom is not on being able to do the things that you want to do. Real freedom is doing the things that you don't want to do. It's the ability to do the things that you don't, because anyone can do the things they want to do. That's easy. You want to do it, you do it. Real freedom is in your ability to do the things you don't want to do, but you're still able to do it. Things that you know are right, things that are going to be difficult, but that's real freedom.
Well,
so substances that are addictive, that create
more or less. Emmanuel Kant. I'm glad that he was able to do whatever he wanted to do, but not everyone can do what they want to do. But I understand what he's trying to say, but a little bit.
No, but let's talk about it.
Is that the exact quote?
No, I don't have the exact quote, but it's like that because it means exactly what I'm saying, I'm sure.
But some people cannot. So many
that's
people
not
live under oppression.
But that's not the point.
No, I understand.
You missed the point completely.
No, I did not.
No, the point is that, but that's not freedom. We're talking about the word freedom.
Got it.
When you are able to do something that you love and you do it, that's not freedom.
I understand what Emmanuel Kant's trying to say, but the way that I think about it, and I think we're hitting the same point, because I think that's why you thought about this quote based on what I was saying, correct? Is that a lot of times people think that freedom is the absence of discipline. And in my opinion, freedom can only be achieved through discipline. Because discipline is what's going to give you the chance to be able to not have any vices, not to have any patterns, any addictions that are actually going to remove your freedom, because you're not doing that at your own free will. You're doing that because there is a weakness, there is a vice, there's something that's causing you to think that that's necessary for you to be able to live your life. And that's not healthy. The more you're able to be completely free,
self-sufficient,
and self-sufficient without the necessity of any of the outside vices that we see that nowadays is promoted constantly, right? We're bombarded every day with information, with advertisement causing us to try to use those things. And I believe is the real freedom.
You described Kant's philosophy very well. His philosophy was that the concept of freedom is not being able to do anything you want. Running with your desires and doing whatever you want. That's not freedom. Freedom is your ability to do what is right, even when the situation is difficult. That was his philosophy.
Good.
And also, I would add that I'm free to be addicted. Doesn't make too much sense because alcohol is an addictive substance, creates addiction. So it takes away your freedom because you become addicted to it.
And we're talking about the ideal scenario. Because of course, if you have a health condition, if something happened where you need medication, you're going to use medication.
Correct.
But we're talking about what we should look for as far as a good state of health, wellness, and not needing any external artificial assistance.
For sure. But many times when we do these podcasts and when we have these conversations, and because I think we are three brothers, it's natural that, especially Guy, who's very sensitive, right? And he puts himself in other people's shoes, that we're very careful not to, speak in a way that might be disrespectful towards people that might be listening. But especially this,
because you're not perfect either.
Exactly. I have a lot of flaws. But especially this podcast, what did we start talking about? What's necessary for you to be able to improve?
Self-awareness.
Self-awareness, being humble.
Yeah.
So I please ask everyone who's watching, don't take this as a criticism and an attack towards
judgment.
You. A judgment. We are the number one people that have a lot of things to improve together with everyone who's watching. The idea is that when we talk about these things, these are just examples, topics that are very, common nowadays. A lot of people are talking about alcohol and the use of alcohol and different studies coming out. And the idea is just that if we're able to be self-aware and humble, that's the path to be able to improve in any of the attributes that one might be trying.
There are specialists, nutritional specialists and health specialists that believe that alcohol, refined sugar, in few years, those will be looked upon in similar ways to the ways that cigarette are viewed.
But
But going back, Pedro, to what Joaquim said, yes, I think it's important to be sensitive to others, right? Always, and I'm sure we are. Now, our position is to try to transmit the lessons that we have learned. Our Father, and that's, I think, the most important connection in this episode. Our Father, yes, he drank alcohol. Our Father did not follow the regimen, the eating, the diet perfectly. Many times he would eat foods that he really liked from his youth and things that were not the best for his health. But he did not allow that. And that's what's very difficult. And that's the greatest challenge. He worked very hard and he had the help of Hélio Gracie. That's important because we were raised with Hélio Gracie so present in our lives, sleeping at his house, staying with him sometimes for a whole month in vacation. But he was able to not transmit those mistakes. And that is very hard and very rare.
so that's the whole point.
Because many times, and I see this, and I've had the ability to discuss this with friends, usually that don't really train jiu-jitsu, because we have many students that also, make these mistakes, these normal mistakes, and they want that influence for their children. But I think what's more normal is for people then to not be humble, to hide from the mistake, to try to justify the mistake, and then to transmit those mistakes to their
Exactly.
future generations.
So that's the whole point. Agree or disagree with our philosophies and our ideas on alcohol, the three of us have the same idea. We don't drink. And our Father did, but we don't, because he explained to us, even though he didn't give us that example, he explained to us that alcohol was not good, and he transmitted that idea to us. And it worked because the three of us and our sister, the four of us, don't drink. That's the fascinating thing about this episode, and that's the message here. How it's possible if you develop a relationship of trust, a relationship of
Honesty.
of honesty.
For me, it's honesty.
With your child, but also admiration. If your
Yeah.
children admire you.
Like I said before, you need as a parent, and we're learning this now, I think not just as a parent, but someone that has an influence over any child, what connects you to that child is what you said. Of course, there are key words: admiration, respect, the sense of loyalty, this deep sense of loyalty.
trust, which comes from honesty.
That only comes through trust, honesty, sincerity, where you don't let that person down. Talking to our friends, special operators in the highest level special operators in the US military. One time we asked them, what really keeps you guys motivated? What keeps you guys going? Even if there are no missions, they said reliability. I know that the man next to me needs me to be ready, and I cannot disappoint him because it might cost his life. And we always felt that our dad was there for us.
Yeah. So
Right?
so I think it's possible. Number one, if you have a flaw, try to fix it. If you can't fix it, don't transmit it to your child. Don't justify it, because sometimes the way that you find to justify your flaw is to let your child doing it. It's a way of saying, no, it's okay. I'm okay, so my child will be okay as well. That our Father didn't do. He didn't compromise on our well-being. If he had a flaw, that was his issue. But he didn't want us to have it.
But Pedro, that's why I want to really emphasize what I just said. The only way you'll achieve this is if your child is connected to you.
100%.
Because if not, then it's what the specialist said. You have to, to maybe have a better chance of teaching it, you have to do it yourself. You have to be perfect. That's the only way. If you're perfect, then your child's going to be perfect. That many times is very hard to do, especially as we get older.
And that's not a guarantee.
That's not a guarantee.
You could have a parent that doesn't do
Drink?
something,
Yeah.
and then the kid starts drinking. So
Yeah. So what it is instruction. Like we say, it's not through osmosis. Don't expect it to just happen. You have to study. You have to study psychology. Right?
Correct.
Parents need to understand psychology. But again, if that's what we've concluded, right? We're still trying to understand how our dad did what he did, especially in our upbringing. I think that we always felt, it never crossed our mind that our dad would do something against us. We always had him right there, even though he was far many times. He was working and he was traveling, and our mom helped him a lot in that when we were growing up. But he was always there. And because of that, we always wanted to do whatever we thought would make him happy. Does that make sense?
It does, 100%. I always wanted to, I never, as you said earlier, I never wanted to disappoint him. But at the same time, he instilled in us this sense that by doing what he taught us, it would be best for us.
Yeah.
And I always trusted it was both. I didn't want to disappoint him, but I knew because he explained to me, it wasn't only about not disappointing him. It was also because he made me understand that those choices would be best for me.
For sure. Even though the few times that I cut jujitsu to go play basketball without him knowing.
You skipped jujitsu.
Yeah. I cut jujitsu class. I skipped jujitsu. I still remember those days. I don't think I ever told him, but now he knows. Good. Anything else? All right. I hope you enjoyed another Valente Brothers podcast episode. If you haven't liked our video, if you enjoyed it, of course, please like the video. It helps us spread these videos. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. And we will see you very soon. All the best. Thank you.